Hi, it's Craftytinas, and today in this video I want to show you how to make a wire guide. I get frequent questions on what size wire do I need to buy when you're new to the cinch, or if you've just bought your cinch and you want to have your wires ready to go when you get it. I get the question what size wire to buy. And the question is always, well, it depends on what you're making. But when you buy your cinch, you don't really know what you're going to make. Unless you've bought the cinch to make one specific item, then you can use that item to judge what size wire. But if you want to make a variety of stuff and just go nuts, I mean, why not? You have the machine. You really don't know what size wire until you decide what size book. We're gonna go with this one. Once you know what size book, you also need to know, well, how big do I want my wire to be? I made this guide so that I can take my book before binding it and choose what size wire will fit. If you look at it this way, the small wire isn't even as big as the book. The next wire, well, that's kind of cutting it close, but it would work. And the next wire is like, well, that would give me a lot of room. Do I want a lot of room? And in this case, I did want a lot of room because I was putting something on top of the book. This is my magnet holding my dry erase pen to the top because this is my flashcards. That is my opinion to make it bigger. The wires can be bigger because it has something on top. If this was a notebook without anything on top, that's kind of big. I could have went the next size down because it does totally cover. Let me get it where you can see it. It totally goes over my notebook, and I have a little space left because you want a little play. But it gave me no extra on top. I didn't need it, I just wanted the look. So I went with this one. I love the guide, it's really helping. It also reminds me what size wires I have, so when I go to press them, I remember what size I'm pressing. This might not be for everyone, this might be a waste of time for others. This has really helped me. I also wrote on here double loop wire 2-to-1 pitch because this is what I have to search for when I'm buying my wires. It can only be a 2-to-1 pitch, and that basically means 2 wires in 1 inch. That is super important. If you buy a 3-to-1 or a 4-to-1, it will not work. So let's get started making this great little guide. On a side note, this is a file from Etsy. My husband cut it on his laser cutter. It gives you the size of wires and these little spacers. So you could put your book you haven't bound yet inside these and see which ones they fit in. Obviously they don't fit in any lower than the 3/4, which is correct because that's what I used. However, the downside to this, if you've already bought your wires, you know what sizes you have. I have a 7/8, which is great. I have a 3/4, which is great. But I have a 9/16, and they don't have a 9/16. I have a 7/16, and they don't have the 7/16. So this is great if you're just starting out. You could buy these wires by looking to see how thick your notebooks are going to be. It's like, oh, I like this little one here. Let me go find that notebook or that wire for that notebook. So there's nothing wrong with this. It's great. Thank you, hubby. I know he watches on my YouTube, so I want to thank him for creating this for me with his hobby to help my hobby. And I will use this some because I do like squeezing the book and seeing if it fits, because I like to do random stuff and I'm just getting started with the random stuff. This is a little artist kit that I made and it's very random and it took some thought to make this. So sometimes this might be better than this. But I wanted to put that out there so you guys know that this is out there. So let's make this. It's very simple and you're going to use scraps you already have. You're not going to have to buy anything fancy, any kind of equipment. You already have your equipment. You just need some scraps. And what I say by scraps is you're going to need a piece of all the wires you have that you wish to put on your guide. I wanted small, medium, and large, so that's what I bought. I thought small, medium, and large. But when I started putting this together, I noticed how big of a gap it was from my small to my medium. And I thought, you know, that's pretty drastic. So let me get one more size. So now I have the small, medium, large, extra large. I'm pretty happy with the different sizes. I mean, that's a good range. I don't think I'll need any more than that. This is not the full capacity of this machine. This machine can go to a 3/8, which is smaller, and it can go all the way up to 1 1/4, which is like 3 or 4 wires bigger than I have. I don't know that I want to go bigger than this, but only time will tell. Who knows? We might find something crafty that I need a bigger wire for. So once you have a scrap of your wires, I chose to use 4 double loops because I think that gives me enough range to be able to really tell if that book's going to work. You can choose 3, you can choose 5, whatever works for you. You just want to make sure that you punch enough holes to accommodate all of your wires. This is 8.5 by 2, and you'll need an 8.5 by 2 3/4. This is chipboard. Got this on Amazon. It's 30-point chipboard, so it's pretty stiff. If you're going to use recycled boxes, which I encourage, like a cereal box or a granola bar box, you are going to want to double it. So glue 2 pieces together. You can cover this in paper and make it fancy if you want. It doesn't need to be fancy. This is my guide. You're also going to need tape, glue, anything that will stick this piece of chipboard to this piece of chipboard after the wires are on. So it needs to be something strong just to hold it down. I believe I'm going to go back and put a thin layer of hot glue in here just to keep my wires in the, because I put this in a drawer, to keep my wires more sturdy. I don't like it turning and this little pointy thing poking up. I could trim that, but I don't want to mess up the wires either. I'm just going to put some hot glue along there. And you're going to need a Sharpie if you wish to mark them. I highly recommend you mark them and mark them large so that you know which wire to grab. I wrote this on here even though I know this by heart, simply because if it's in my videos, it will remind you guys what you need and what I bought to make my books. So let's get started. This is my top piece, and I made this one a little bit bigger than this one. I wanted a little more space here on the bottom level. So if they come out a little different in size, don't fear, I did it on purpose. So once you have your 2.5 by 8.5 piece, you're simply going to, and I'm turning it over because I want to write on it, you're simply going to punch your holes. There doesn't need to be anything fancy here, but because this is 8.5, the machine's pretty much set up to do 8.5 by sliding this all the way in, pushing all of your buttons in. Make sure they're all in. I always make sure it's also cleaned out. So with this all the way in, you're going to punch. See what happens? There's no guide now. I want to make sure. So I'm going to hold this board against here and line this one up as if this piece was longer. And again, this is not important to be exact. This is a guide. I just want enough chipboard on each side that it's going to hold the papers together. After I've lined it up, I'm simply going to punch my holes. I had all of them pushed in, so all of them are going to create a hole. And this may sound and look to you like it's hard to push. It's not. It's me reaching over the camera. So I don't want you guys to think this is a really hard machine to use. And here's my holes. And because the machine only does 12 holes at a time, I'm going to need to punch the rest. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can slide this out, or you can simply open the guide. Now, because this is very short, I don't need a guide anymore. I need this little side guide. Let me turn this so you guys can see it. You need this little button on the side. I don't want anything falling. This right here. This holds the hole the second from the last. Not the last one, this one. You can't hold the machine into it. There we go. It simply holds that one. Remember, it's not the last one, it's the next to the last. Once it's clicked into place, push it all the way to the back, find the end, and pull out the peg so you're not punching a partial hole. This is as far as it goes. Keep in mind, I'm doing 4 times 4, so I'm doing 16 holes. We already did 12, and I only need to do 4 more, so make sure you push this out. If you forget to pull this out, it's not a big deal. You're just going to have a little partial hole there. Remember, your guide is holding you, so you can't just pull this out. You have to open it up. And now I have perfectly punched holes in seconds with my cinch. Now that is done. You can move that out of the way. We cannot move that totally out of the way because you have to bind your wires. Now, put your wires in order and keep them there so you don't get confused. But I want to share with you, you need to put these on smallest to largest. If you put the large one on first using the machine, it's going to be hard to do the next size down because this one is going to prevent it going all the way down to this one. So make sure you start with the small. Now normally we would hang this here and you would start building your book. But for this, we only have one piece of cardstock, chipboard. I'm going to turn this around. My lowest needs to be on the left. And I'm simply going to put that on and I'm going to bind it. Scoot this over. I'm working on getting a better camera position because I really want you guys to be able to see everything that I am doing very clear. This wire, according to my guide, is a 7/16. There is no 7/16 on here, but paid attention in math. 7/16 is almost 8/16, which is a half. So I go to my half and then I go 1 click down. And that seems to be the sweet spot for this one. If you're binding your wires and you're getting a flat spot and you know you're putting it in there properly, go 1 click down. Because if you're getting a flat spot, it is putting too much pressure on. So remember, when you are cinching, to get the pretty round look, the ends have to touch the back. That is super important. And you can hold that, not with your fingers, with your paper. Once it's set, push your paper all the way to the back. Make sure your setting is properly. Also make sure it's all the way down and pushed back. And then crimp or cinch. And now I have my wires. And they are round. Even though this doesn't have a marking for 7/16, it has little clicky feel to it when you turn the handle. And you can go anywhere you want. In this case, I needed to go slightly smaller than the 1/2. And there's my first one. The next one I'm going to do is a 9/16. Again, I don't really have a 9/16 on here. However, 8/16 would be a half, and this is slightly above a half. So I'm going to go a click above the half. I'm going to put my wire in the next 4 holes. Now remember, this is bigger than this, so when I cinch this, it is not going to affect this. Make sure that your 2 open ends touch the back of your machine and that the bottom rests on this black foam. That is very important. Simply hold it using the paper, not your fingers. Once you get it where you want, push it and cinch it. Now I have 2 of my 4 cinched down. Take your next one, put it in the next 4 holes. Now this one is a 3/4, 3/4. We do have a measurement for that. So I'm going to make sure this is right in the middle. If you question it at all, go lower, don't go higher. Because you can always cinch it more, but you can't take the cinch out. It's like cutting. Cut more because you can't add it back, especially when you're cutting your hair. So make sure that your open wire is up against the back. You're pushing it with your cardstock or chipboard, not holding it with your fingers, and that the bottom is touching. The bigger the wire, the easier it is to hold because you have more space. And cinch it. And now I messed that one up. I was not holding it in the proper place. It's slightly oblong. It's not enough to matter for what I'm doing. I can fix it a little with my fingers. I can put it back in there and try to get it back around. There's a lot of options. And then the next is my largest. Again, making sure it's flush to the back, making sure the bottom touches, and I'm going to bend down and look this time. Let's set the machine first. I am now going to do a 7/8, and there is a 7/8 on your machine. Now don't think you're limited to these numbers, because remember there are sizes in between these numbers, like I showed you with the 7/16 and the 9/16. Use how versatile this machine really is, and get the wires that works for you, or get what you can find. We Are Memory Keepers, again, failed us on supplies, and you're going to need to get your supplies from third parties. So get what you can and what you like, and then you can always adjust how it gets cinched. So this is the last one. We have it set to 7/8. We have our wire in. You're going to push it to the back, hold it down, push it to the back. I'm going to make sure I do this one properly. I like to look from the side. And that one was done perfectly. So now I have a piece of chipboard with 4 wires. So now we are done with the cinch. Once you have your 4 wires, I like to put the straight edge all the way in the back. You need to tape this or glue it to this. Now I made mine flush at the bottom, turned all my little wires in, and basically just glued it down like that. I'm using double-sided tear tape, and I think it's 1/4 inch. I get it on Amazon. I get whatever and whoever has the best deal at the time, because I've never found a bad one of these. They've always been really good. They're just pricey if you do a lot, so I actually prefer using this. And then I buy the refills, but last night when I was making a card, I ran out and I hadn't put it back in yet. So that's why I'm using the double-sided. You could use hot glue, you could use regular craft glue, anything you want. I'll put this one up kind of close to the top. Let me take these little papers off. And I also want to put them here because I want the sides to be nice and sturdy. And the best thing about this is if you tear it too big, you can just fold it back up on itself. It's very versatile. If you've never played with this tape, grab a roll because it's pretty cool. Okay, now I have all my adhesive. I want to turn all mine in. Now I'm going to line mine up to the bottom. It's just a personal preference because I want some extra on top for stability. I make sure my wires are turned in, and then I just press it down. And now I have a guide. I purposely made more space here that's up to you if you want more space there. I just felt like the wires are just a little too close, and it might be my glue. That's why I'm going to run some hot glue. Now, you have a guide. All I did was make a line between the wires. It gave me more of a visual. It's entirely up to you what you wish to do. And then I wanted to make sure I knew exactly what my size was. Now, this guide is going in my camper in my craft area, so I don't need to know the double loop wire 2-to-1 pitch because I'm not going to be in there shopping, maybe. So I didn't write it on this one. I wrote it on this one. This is going to stay in the house, and this one's going in the camper. My husband built me a craft room in our camper instead of having bunk beds, so I can craft away. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any other ideas. But for me, so far, this has worked wonderful. It's given me exactly what I needed to make sure I get the best wire. And it may also answer questions on, hey, what size wires do I need? If you've seen my other videos, these are the 4 wires I've used. This is the newest wire, so I haven't done it much. But I've made a lot of different things, not just notebooks and tablets. And a sneak peek, this is another video going to be done. This one holds greeting cards and a birthday list. So stay tuned for more fun. Please subscribe so you'll know when the next video comes out, and have a great day.